Bienvenidos to the World Championship Series here at Blizzard Arena in Los Angeles, Burbank. I'm joined here by Coltern. My name is Katz, and we're gonna be casting a awesome CBT between Lambo and souL. So how are you doing today, man?
Muy bien, señor. ¿Y tú?
Not too bad. Actually, just yesterday, I was riding an elevator, and a couple friends, and this dude walks in with his two sons.
Okay.
Okay, tall dude, and you know, I'm standing there, so you're looking at the buttons on the elevator, and you
As you do.
just like give him a look, like, hey, like, what's your floor, right? You don't say anything. You're just like,
yeah, the look says it all.
yeah, and the guy goes, dos. I didn't know what to make of it.
Just you hadn't said anything.
I just pressed number 2, of course. They walked out on the second floor. It wasn't a long ride.
Yeah,
it was, you know, one floor up.
Did you make sure to say like goodbye, sir? Thank you very much. Like,
I did not. I did not. I just they exited. Then we all started laughing and wondering.
Oh man.
Wondering indeed.
Yeah, that's straight up profiling is what that
You
is.
think
Yeah,
so?
I think
mean,
that
a
is.
little
Yeah,
bit, right? Like, I don't know. I try not to speak in Spanish.
Yeah, like I guess it happened. Like you happen to actually know Spanish, but yeah, no, that's yikes.
All right.
souL
So
versus
here
Lambo.
is The souL versus Lambo, the King, as he is called. Lambo King is his stream. So we're gonna be jumping onto Cyber Forest Ladder Edition. And this should be a fantastic matchup here. Lambo not quite performing as well as you're used to seeing him against Marine Lord. Marine Lord is kind of a strange player though, whereas Lambo's a very methodical player, one of the smartest players in the scene, I would say, one of the most informative players in the scene as well. If you ever watch his stream, definitely should check him out.
Yeah, I completely agree, and he will be starting us off down here in the bottom right-hand side in the red. It is Lambo. Looking for a bit better of a performance here in this series.
Yes, indeed. And on the top left-hand side of the map, playing as the blue Terran, it is the French prodigy, Marine Lord. souL, actually, definitely not French.
No.
Nor is he a Marine or a Lord.
Indeed. But he's got souL.
He's got souL, that's for sure. Well, I burped a little bit there. Mind burp.
Yeah, that's all right.
So, yeah, souL played a good series against souL, I think.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you were to just watch the last 2 series, like souL versus souL, Lambo versus Marine Lord, you would probably favor souL here.
Absolutely.
But I think Lambo is an excellent player. Just things have to kind of go his way, I think, because he's that methodical. So we'll see what happens here. It is a hatch first and not a pull first, as we have been seeing so commonly in this fine day of StarCraft. So
yeah, you know, I think just very aware of what his opponent is wanting to do, you know, and not being necessarily afraid of a proxy racks on this map. I like it from Lambo. Getting himself set up against the, so far, lack of creativity from souL in terms of what we're seeing to start things off. Very standard stuff.
Yes, indeed. Also, Lambo opened with the 6 Zerglings in one of those games. And that means that souL has to account for that, right? If he was to go for something like a proxy or anything of the sort, he would think, hey, well, Lambo also has it in his arsenal to play pretty safe. So maybe let's chill. There is a 3rd hatchery on the way for Lambo very fast before the Reaper can arrive.
Yeah, so nice for Lambo.
Yeah, and this is beautiful because not very many people do this. If you look at the saturation in the main, there is only the 1 drone mining the gas, and he kind of prioritized droning the expansion as well. So what Lambo likes doing here is getting that 3rd hatchery before the Reaper can deny it. A few times we've seen people have to kind of wait or sneak past the Reaper or wait till that speed is a little bit closer. So different things that you can do instead of that, delaying a queen or delaying your gas intake a little bit. So Lambo will be cutting corners here and there to make sure that he secures that position. And again, a very methodical, very intelligent player will be able to do just that.
Yeah, very nicely done. To secure that, as on the other side of things, we see that starport coming down, Tech Lab getting added on as well. So potentially could be seeing Banshees or something like that. coming out from souL. Have to wait and see as it does finish up here.
Yeah. So we'll see. Indeed, it looks like it's going to be most likely Banshees, right?
Yeah, with that second gas getting taken as well. Third command center finishing up here for souL very early as well. Always nice to have, get that extra SCV production, get his economy even with that of Lambo as this Reaper and Hellion. Still trying to pressure the front. Good queen presence from Lambo, going to put a stop to that for now.
Yeah, and more or less the tell here for Banshees over something like Raven, I would say, or I would guess, is the fact that there is that third command center on the way. So Banshee is a little bit of a safer option, whereas Raven scales up a little bit harder and is a little bit less common as well. So it is indeed a safe guess.
Yes, indeed. As 10 Zerglings getting added on now, so wanting to be able to be a little bit more active, not being as reliant on these queens, hopefully put a shutdown to these Hellions, as well as being able to respond as more Hellions will continue to get added on here. Yep. Good job so far by souL, taking the shots with the Reaper, of course can regen. And, ooh, one Zergling, going to see the saturation of that natural base, very nice.
Indeed. One cool thing to take note of whilst creep spreading is going on is that the positioning of the creep tumors when there's Hellions out there is very important. You'll see that Lambo doesn't actually always spread to the very edge of the creep, and that is because you want a little bit of a buffer for the queens to stand in front of the creep tumors, protecting them should the Hellions poke forward. So you see he's not always spreading to the very edge, and that's a good habit to have if the creep is being contested.
Yeah, very intelligent stuff from Lambo as layers on the way behind this. That Baneling Nest just finishing up as well, so centrifugal hooks not too far away as this Banshee is close. No cloak on the way or looking like even wanting it here, so just waiting for the best opportunity to do something. Spore Crawler and a Queen.
Nope, no transfuse there. It was available, I believe. So a little bit of a blunder losing that drone, especially seeing as how the Banshee had been parked right next to an Overlord the entire time. But Marine Lord not really heavily committing to the Banshee either, so it's not the worst deal, the worst thing in the world. It was mostly a safety Banshee so that he could get away with that very early third command center. So we'll see.
Right.
I don't know. Did I call him Marine Lord again just now?
No, I don't think so.
Cool.
I think you said you talked about a Marine, but no, we're good. Centrifugal hooks getting started up as the 1-1 for those melee units coming up for Lambo. On the other side of things, Stim finishing up here very soon with the 1-1. Of course, in a few days, that Stim would already be done at this point, and 21 seconds shorter. Coming up here soon will, of course, also be in effect for finals of this. So a little bit of extra preparation going to have to go into our players qualifying for the playoffs.
Yes, indeed.
Hydralisk then getting added on for Lambo as well, going for that Lingbane Hydra composition. And, you know, what are your thoughts on how this matches up against what we're seeing coming out from souL here?
It's a pretty standard opener. I mean, we've seen a little bit more variance from Zergs in terms of what they choose to do. souL is a big proponent. And look at this, creep at the edge, right? And why is that, Mr. Coltaran?
It's for keeps it away from the Hellions.
Well, no, the creep is at the edge because there's no Hellions. Yeah,
right,
exactly. So now there's no contesting, therefore you drop the creep at the edge, right? Yeah, so very consistent with his actions and with being efficient at every turn is Lambo.
Very, very nice. As this force is pushing forward from souL with a medevac with an extra tank coming forward. Baneling's great tank shot there. Takes down 3. This 1-1 timing out beautifully with this. It's a very scary push coming out from souL. The Queen's on the right-hand side trying to come in now with those Banelings. Zerglings on both sides. Great target fire by souL as well, taking down so many of those Banelings, and now the Queen's in trouble on the edge of that creep, having to run back here.
Yeah, not a huge fan of that committal by Lambo off of creep as well. I can see what he was going for there, but unfortunately the back end of his army ends up dying a little bit faster maybe than he had foreseen, and thus the Banelings aren't able to connect at the front, so everything survives. He could have also gone for the tank instead with the Queens or the Lynx, but he thinks he can clear the army, takes a huge risk, and this is going to be a great opportunity for souL to push forward. souL has been fantastic absolutely throughout the day at finding the spots without creep, and that is his sieging position. He says, where is there no creep? Because that is not just, that is the place that I can hit soonest, right? So that's the place that he chooses to threaten, and the Zerg more often than not,
fire as well, as Baneley crashing in on this backhand side, getting on top of that tank in the back, will end up falling, but there's still so much bio left alive here. The Banelings rolling in, great pickup, and will be able to stay alive.
Yeah, not just that, but good presence of mind for souL in knowing that, you know, he doesn't have to fully retreat. He just had to avoid the Baneling detonations. A lot of the time, your brain says, oh, let's go back. I can't do this. and then you're hardwired to just go back from that moment onwards. But he says, I just have to avoid the banelings. Oh, big run by Lambo. A little bit of a mistake here from souL, but he's going to identify that this is an opportunity to do things himself, as there is a double medevac trying to poke at the 4th, and the 5th will be taken out from Lambo. So nice job on both ends as Lambo transitions into a hive. He has also done a good job, but not a souL-like job of continuing to spread his creep spread throughout the other ends of the map.
Yeah.
souL is a very difficult player to keep up with, as he is extremely adept at clicking.
Yeah, he's just such a fast player, as he's demonstrating now with these multi-prongs, trying to run out of some Marines. So sooner than later, is going to have to back off and refill these medevacs, get ready for that next wave. Only 2 Marines continuing to pressure here. And I mean, hey, they're drawing the army away, so more power to him. Has to pick up there. Almost getting a good bailing connection, and heading straight up into this main base. Going to look to just constantly abuse the lack of creep connection here. The lack of creep over on the edge of that base, rather, as looking just to trade out with whatever he can here. Very nice.
Oh, beautiful trades. And yeah, that's the thing. souL is recognizing that he has staying power because there is no threat to him. There's very few Hydras. A few more just got added on, but Lambo was working off of like 1 with his main army. And that means the drops really aren't threatened. So you can always drop, and as the Zerg units approach, because they're mostly melee in links and banelings, you can do damage with your ranged units up until they reach you, then load up and always trade efficiently if you have the actions to spare. So really need some sort of anti-air, and Lambo is preparing in the shape of Vipers to pull the medevacs potentially into his Hydralisks.
Going to be looking for those opportunities. Adrenal glands plus 2/2 finishing up for these melee units as well. So it's going to be a very bitey force here on the ground from the side of Lambo as this bio continues to push forward. Contesting the edges of this creep. That tank spot in the bottom left side is still there with those medevacs as the Marines pushing forward, clearing out some more of that creep as well. Doing a very nice job of just picking Lambo apart right now, just keeping him guessing, keeping him having to respond. Lambo doing a nice job of not taking too much, actual damage here, just getting his creep pushed back and kind of respecting this army, right? Realizing that he just needs to buy himself time, get himself these upgrades.
He has had a rough day so far. Let's see if this gets better for Lambo the King. Very nice focus fire once again from souL, but that medevac was so low. Lambo, I think, identified it and looked for it with that 1 Hydra, but Hydras off of creep are pretty slow. More Liberators everywhere. Shift clicked as there is 2 medevacs, or 2 groups of medevacs waiting to also capitalize on either side of the map. souL is just everywhere all the time, and I think that this is...
He is pushing Lambo to his limits. Lambo now having to split up some of this army, trying to fight against this bio, and finally finding a connection. Takes down that medevac as well. And once again, souL seeing that, now active with these Marines over on the other side, as they will get cleaned up. There's really not a lot here.
It's a Viper, though. I mean, that's pretty worth for just a few Marines. These medevacs are a little bit more expensive. Don't really want to lose them, but he will, as they will get abducted onto the Hydra.
Oh, it lives. That's
a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, a lot of energy going to get used here on those Vipers for not much gain so far. So this is a kind of dream scenario so far for souL in terms of using up that Viper energy before these fights go through. It's going to be less abducts, less blinding clouds available to help him as that main army moves towards the top side of the map. Yeah,
exactly. And that's the scary thing, is souL is aware of where the army of Lambo is, and in knowing that, he's able to push very far with the tanks without any risk of getting jumped in the middle of the map. There is some ghosts being added as well, and this is a huge tank line that has already gained decent positioning. Look at souL, he is spreading onto the high ground. This is a good thing to do, as it will be more difficult to engage up here. There is chokes everywhere as well, which is not going to be particularly helpful for Zerglings, but will help for the Banelings. However, the Banelings stumping up against tanks is not so much good for the chokes. I love this from Lambo. He recognizes that. Oh my god, that's huge!
Oh wow, huge pickups here. All 4 gonna go down 100%. The main army of souL still sitting over there on the right-hand side. Those tanks still maintaining that high ground position. The wall is now down. A huge run by at the 3rd base as well as the workers start to fall. Lambo in beautiful position, but now gonna get cut off here. And going to lose a lot of this force, but doing so much damage.
Not just that, but also making it so that souL has to run back. And look at this. I was going to talk about this. The tanks are left sieged without any buffer, and so Lambo is going to get to kill this core army before souL can get back into position. And this is just beautiful from him. A lot of Banelings getting used unnecessarily, though. They really don't need to be tanking tank shots. Ideally, just the Lynx and the Hydras would have been enough, and I think that they would have been. So still very good presence of mind by Lambo, saying, okay, like you leave your tanks sieged while you pulled back your army, and he did. So going and picking that off, still pretty good for him, but he trails 20 supply behind still.
Yeah, still a mountain to climb, as that worker count just about even, which means should mean a slight income lead once the next wave of mules comes in for souL, but pretty even otherwise. That hatchery finally falling, Lambo not having the supply to continue contesting it, trying to find those reinforcements on the left-hand side, and finds a few. Good job by Lambo of recognizing where he's able to fight and where he can't. Has to give up that fourth hatchery, which is very nice for souL. He's now on, what, 5 bases? 6?
Yeah, and that is a good way to put it. It's well done by Lambo, but it ends up being good for souL, right? It's the right call from Lambo, because you engage there, you're probably dead, but he knows, he recognizes that. The creep spread is very lacking, and souL has now a very stiff economical advantage going for him.
Yeah, Lambo going to be in a tough spot, as that hatchery already low as well, and souL, you know, is in no rush. 91 workers to his name. That's absurd.
It is indeed. We're gonna see some more of these rings out on the map as the sensor towers pop up.
Yeah, and he is blue. Might have a hedgehog there somewhere. You know, collecting all of these rings. Setting up.
For sure.
Moving to the top side. Lambo looking to catch that drop, but we'll be able to get out of here. Might lose a little bit of the bio. But yeah, nice job.
Like this from Lambo, though. Doing a little bit of a counterattack. The Planetary Fortress, however, will finish, unfortunately, and souL also has a tank somewhere there ready to fire and poke. These Banelings, though, oh, they were considering going into the fourth, but realizes that there is a PF there as well, so PFs everywhere. And you gotta love the PFs in this situation. It's like, you might ask, oh, like, do I make a PF at my 5th, or do I make a orbital at my 5th? It's like, well, that question is very dependent on what's going on in the game. Are you really far ahead, like souL is? Are you really worried about, you know, like losing your advantage in a silly way, or do you need to take some risks economically, right? So souL, recognizing that he is in a formidable position, he is going to be dropping Planetary Fortresses just about in every base, and this will make it very difficult for Lambo to do any sort of run-bys onto the edges. Yeah,
really going to make things hard, as 3-3 is done. Chitinous plating finishing up just recently as well for those ultras, so very durable at the same time. Advanced ballistics finished up for the Liberators, going to be very, very nice, both for harassment as well as controlling these battlefields, right? Forcing Lambo to take a lot of damage, forcing him to fight on his terms. He's been doing a great job of that so far, as he looks to contest the edge of this once again with that nice tank spot over this wall.
However, the army supplies are now even, and it is Lambo's army that's actually, or rather they're both maxed, and it is Lambo actually that has the more expensive army. So expect that Lambo will be able to clear souL out if he is not careful. Nice snipes from souL, though. We'll get rid of a couple of Ultralisks right away. Ghost on the high ground will help, but eventually, eventually it's Lambo that will plow through this.
Yeah, pushing forward here. A lot of Hydras with this, going to be more than enough. Just routing this army. The snipes were decent, killing that first Ultralisk very quickly, but not enough to beat the rest of that army on the ground. The upgrade advantage before that +3 armor is done as well, just making this so hard. And the Banelings getting good connections onto those SCVs. This base goes down, and this is a much needed win for the side of Lambo.
Yeah, and this is where you start regretting making this many workers, right? You have to be consistent with what you do in terms of what advantage you're taking. So souL does take a very, very sizable economic lead, but I feel like he didn't, like he was all over the place. He was doing damage all over the place. He was doing great. And then when he transitions, and we kind of saw this against souL too, where I felt like he had a clear lead, but then he kind of steps it back and says, okay, I'm gonna transition now, I'm gonna go for the late game. Well, the problem with that is it's not very consistent with his approach otherwise. He had 92 workers, now down to 80, and that makes it so that the army supply for Lambo is so much larger that in an engagement he's gonna trade incredibly cost efficiently, and now is considerably closing the gap between the two players.
Yeah. As these armies continue to clash at the center of the map, Lambo moving through the smallest choke in the game. but not going to get punished for it so far.
Yeah.
And a nice lean run by up the top side as well, starting to restrict that economy lead of souL. The army completely out of position here as the fight goes down on the bottom side. Drop doing what it can, but does get cleaned up.
Yeah.
Lambo starting to catch up here, starting to close that gap, as you were saying.
Yeah, and I really think it is by virtue of souL not really capitalizing on his advantage. If you have an economic advantage, you want to consistently and constantly continue to trade. He used that economic advantage and the position that he had once again for the transition. Again, I would have much rather seen him continue to trade, because if Lambo gets maxed, you know, he's gonna have a bigger army. That's just how it works. If you have too many workers, then that's what happens.
Yeah, and definitely 91, way too many here as these banelings, way too many as well for souL to deal with. Great abducts on the Liberators as well, getting them unsieged. That range not going to be helping too much as the banelings roll forward. The bio getting shredded, still 81 to 94 that army supplies. These Liberators in the sky doing quite a bit here, but the Ultra is still so tanky, and the SCV is taking a ton of damage here as well.
Yeah, Lambo realizing that he's taking a lot of shots from those Ultras, pushes a few forward, but he is trying to micro at many places at once. This Ultralist will get on top of the tank, but not be enough. So a lot of ghosts still popping up, but Lambo has gained a lot of ground, the creep spread to follow here, and the army values are now more or less even, with Lambo actually trailing in supplied. So right now, after those very good trades and seeing as how souL's army was so big, Lambo's just gonna be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, we saw the Liberator, you know, on screen doing so much economic damage from the backside of that, killing I think 15, 16 workers. In addition to how well, you know, to how much of a lead souL had in that economy for so long. Lambo was absolutely doing the right things, but combined with that economic damage right at the end, just kind of sealed the deal for him. You know, he definitely was making gains back, getting into that game.
Yeah, it was a little bit. I think he ran out of patience there, because I don't think he needed to attack at all, right? If we look at the game between souL and souL as well, the thing to realize there is that souL was actually trading consistently more efficient than souL was. It's just that souL's economy was absurd.
Right.
So once you take that very good trade as Lambo, I think that's when you situate your economy, and you probably don't want to attack until you have a considerably larger bank. Maybe just take the outer bases, don't push onto the high ground, onto the PFs, onto the more fortified positions off of creep.
Right.
Just, you know, like he gained ground, so just continue to spread that creep and continue to do your thing, and slowly crawl your way in, rather than trying to capitalize on, you know, on the one punch that you have. He was so patient and so good at coming back, and then
he'd been playing such a disciplined game and doing it such a great job with those run bys. Yeah, I completely agree. Now for the next map will be New Repugnancy. You know, does this change anything for you? That's from what we saw in that last game. You know, does this give either, you know, any ideas come into your head of what you would do being down 0-1 here as Lambo? You know, any ideas what you want to see come out?
Lambo is a confident player in his abilities, so I don't think that we'll see much change in approach from him. I think he's probably lamenting some of his decisions. I think he would be aware of anything that, you know, that went wrong. Maybe he thought he was further behind than he was that game, and maybe that's why he got. So if he doesn't have that information, then maybe, you know, maybe he's thinking to himself that that he should throw a curveball. But I don't think so. I think Lambo's a very, again, methodical player, a very straightforward macro player for the most part. Yeah,
and you know, was very clearly aware of his state in that game, or of the moves he needed to do to get back, right? We saw him be active with multiple task force, trying to equalize that economy, albeit a little bit too late, right? You know, he'd already been on the 6 bases for a pretty considerable amount of time. We'll see how he's going to be able to adapt here. Really, I think if he's just more if we have that same game again and Lambo is more patient, you know, I definitely think he can take it here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if he gets there in a better position, we could see that. From souL, though, I would really like to see him capitalize a little bit harder on his advantages. Like, I feel like both players not completely aware of where their strengths lie at every point in the game. Whereas souL is very consistent with his approach, right? It's like, I have a lot of money, I'm making a lot of money, I'm gonna make a lot more money, I'm gonna throw units at you. Right. I don't care if they trade kind of inefficiently, I'm gonna keep headbutting until it's no longer efficient.
Which is what creates so many of those situations where it's like, how is he doing this? How is he able to take such crazy-looking trades and still come out ahead. And it is, as you said, due to that economy, due to being so consistent with the income and consistent in that approach, being so methodical.
Yeah, you can take any approach you want. You just got to be consistent. That's the name of the game in StarCraft. So let's see if both of these players can get their hits straight in that regard. They are brilliant players. Well, I would say Lambo is definitely a brilliant player. SouL is a brilliant player in his own right. One of the faster clickers in the world.
Indeed. That Osu practice, very nice.
Yeah, very accurate. Baneling snipes galore.
Yeah, so sick with that. Always.
Liberator shift clicked everywhere. Multi-prong attacks everywhere. It's just his jam. He will come at you from every angle.
Death by 1,000 cuts here, as the game will be starting off with a very expected standard start here. The command center coming down on this low ground. Reaper, fast expand. You know, if you opened up a book that on how to play TvZ, this would be one of the first openers there. Very standard.
Yes, indeed.
And leaves you with a lot of potential here. Curious to see if we'll see that safety Banshee again from SouL.
Yeah, I mean the position of the barracks indicates obviously the room for the
reactor.
Yeah, for the reactor. So we're gonna see the factory float onto that. Open Hellions, as standard as it gets.
Yeah, and on the other side, pulling two off the gas once again, prioritizing that mineral income. Third base once again, very fast here from Lambo, keeping that Reaper from being annoying and denying that base for what can be a very significant amount of time, especially as things can line up less than ideally, but not going to be the case here. Queen coming out now.
Exactly. So again, to iterate on this particular opener that Lambo is doing, what he does is he will take the gas just for mining efficiency, but he recognizes that he doesn't need the speed particularly early. So why take the gas at all? Just so that you have 16 workers on your mineral line and not 17 or 18, as most people would think that 17 or 18 drones are not gonna be mining efficiently, and you can't transfer until your hatchery is done at the natural, right? So you put them on gas, but then as your natural finishes, you pull a couple of workers off of gas because you don't really care about the speed being that late. You just care about mining efficiently. And you prioritize minerals back. And that's what allows you to have the room to drop that third before the Reaper arrives, right? So, so again, very methodical play by Lambo. This is a opener that he popularized himself. Him and a laser in particular started using it a lot. And then Stefano also adapted it in his own right.
Reaper poking around, looking around for that third base. He gets the visual confirmation. Speed finishing up here will mean that, you know, gonna have to be more careful. Gonna have to just be cautious here, not overextend with it. 6 Zerglings getting added on. These Queens in good position to pressure this back and getting some good damage here so far.
Yeah, there's a few links ready for a run by, but I would say SouL has been very conservative with these Hellions, whereas someone like Marine Lord was a little bit more proactive in doing what in 2010 would have been deemed the QXE Hellions, just when you just run them past everything and YOLO in. So we haven't seen much of that from SouL. Lambo very proactive as well with the creep spread, prioritizing it greatly this game so far. And with the 3 Queens, a very similar approach to what we saw souL do to make sure that they are able to drop that creep. Oh, look at this creep tumor. It's a little bit exposed.
Yeah.
And yeah, see, you can't stand in front of that one. So I'm glad it got killed.
Down it goes as the Queens just still responding to this. Just some relatively light pressure from SouL. Lurking around here, adding on double engineering bay behind this with that stim finishing up. More barracks. It's going to be the bio play. That 1-1 timing can be so potent. We saw it be potent before from SouL, looking to do it again. At the very least, put himself on to a solid start here as we listen for the sounds of these
a little bit
flames
with those
toasting
tumors.
stuff.
I mean, you can't really easily stand in front of those. Luckily for him, SouL's not going to be paying attention to it, and he does have the heads up from the Overlord as well. So let's see what ends up happening here. +1/+1 indeed on the way, so there will be a tiny window.
Yeah, we'll be looking for it as the Hellions still not being able to do too much, right? Just kind of getting himself the map control. Hasn't been able to kill too many tumors. I think maybe a couple, well, just one. So great work by Lambo so far and being in the right spot with those queens, and now 18 more Zerglings getting added on as these Hellions start to push on to creep.
Yep. And I was talking about this with our wonderful observer, Some Sauce, as well. The reason you want to do this as a Terran player, because you might look at this and be like, well, those Hellions aren't doing anything, is, well, situations like this help, of course. But it forces the queens to be out on the map, to be made and to be up there still. So it's kind of like, you know, like a quick gut check, if you will. It's like, hey, I'm making Hellions, you better make queens. Hellions always have that aggressive potential as well, so you better have some links in the back, because if I run in, you might just die like you did to Marine Lord.
Yes, exactly. Forcing the response as that one Zergling forces these Hellions to come all the way back. A lot of Zerglings from Lambo running forward here, trying to wiggle their way in, and in they will get, getting this round on this army and on the tank as well, as they get absolutely shredded, but not finding the tank, and now Bio coming in to respond to that. Going to be able to clean this up, not doing as much as he might have wanted there.
Yeah, over microing, Lynx are not the kind of unit that you usually want to stutter step too much. I think if he had just attack moved there, it would have gotten the surround. And that's part of why, like, you look at a Terran micro and you're like, whoa, such micro. And you look at Zerg micro and it's like, well, sometimes the best thing to do is not to micro, right? It's just let the units do their thing, as they are intelligent AI, and they will get the surrounds down for you. Now, it's somewhat understandable to try to reposition in order to... get spotted. Somewhat understandable to try to reposition to try to get more surface area, which is what I think Lambo was looking for. Basically, he probably saw that there was a little bit of a gap between the units and the wall, so he thought, okay, if I can get a bigger surround, and that's why he was kind of moving the links forward or letting the links in the back also come in to help. But it ends up costing him, because that tank and those few Marines should have been dead.
Absolutely. 72 to 68, that worker count as this game trundles forward. +1 melee finishing up for these Zerglings, going to give them a little bit more bite to back up this bark, as the creep continuing to get contested here by souL, doing a great job of it so far here in the early stages of this game. Zerglings waiting on that right-hand side, looking for an opportunity. We'll find a couple Marines for their trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like the Marines find that army instead, right? Because that's the information that's worth having for souL, is that there is a counterattack waiting to happen from Lambo. Has he accounted for it? We'll see, as the counterattack is considering moving in. Yes, there is a mine there in place, as well as 3 siege tanks waiting for it.
So nice.
Yeah, very, very well done by souL. So this counterattack by Lambo, as it has been spotted, it stands a very low chance to do anything unless souL starts repositioning or dismisses it as, you know, it's probably gone by now.
Yeah, souL listening to Nathanius, adding on the drilling claw upgrade for these Widow Mines, going to be a very nice tool in helping to deal with these Zerglings.
Yeah, this is a common trend with Lambo as well. He hasn't had throughout this series enough anti-air to really push these medevacs back, and that just means that his life is a little bit harder, because he has to be on top of it, right? Like, he has to be ready for these loads and unloads and kind of chase everywhere with his Link Bane. If you're good enough, as he is, to keep on top of these, then it's not such a big trouble. But otherwise, the Spire that's coming up online, or just having Queens in position, or a few more Hydras, would really be helpful here for pushing those a little bit more indefinitely. We see 2 Liberators,
yeah. Yeah, combined with this medevac drop on the bottom side, the main army moving towards that center. This is great pressure from souL if he can capitalize on this. 2-2 finished up for this bio as well. Could be very potent. Dropping in that third base, the Zerglings leaving that main base now. And the Liberators almost in position there. And actually a bunch of Zerglings running up to help deal with that as well.
Very nice. And look at that beautiful job at clicking from souL here, as he picks off a few Banelings for free and then lifts up and leaves, because there's nothing to threaten the medevacs.
Yes, very, very nice here. Killing a Queen with this Liberator as well. Will eventually lose it, though, as the Spore Crawler moves in. Banelings once again getting target fired down. Lost 1, but will be able to finally force this back. And overall, pretty well defended by Lambo there. The 3-pronged pressure gets pushed back.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at resources lost, it's souL that's trading a little bit more cost efficiently. Actually, 25% plus more cost efficiently than Lambo is, so it is nothing to be dismissed. But Lambo has been focusing hard on economy, and we saw that he was pretty good come this stage of the game in the prior games. So we'll see as ultras get added. However, souL will also be he's a player that likes these transitions, right? Like into the Liberators, into the Ghosts. And I'm not sure that Lambo... Actually, Lambo has 98 workers, so we can very much play the game that souL was playing on this exact map against souL. Once those Ultralisks are here, he can afford, I think, to headbutt into souL, who also has a formidable economy. So economy is the name of the game. Lambo's going to be looking to restrict it. He really needs to make stuff happen. I'm not sure what these drones are doing here, maybe for spores. Or maybe just to sacrifice for extra supply, but they are just chilling for now.
Yeah, for now, just playing soldier for the day. As Kindness Plating is finished up, that +3 Carapace on the way as well. So these Ultras not quite at their final form, but still very formidable here. souL going to need to find ways to make this harassment stick, find ways to shut down this economy. As the trades are going to be starting here for Lambo, as you said, looking to mimic what we saw from souL.
Yeah, but the trades haven't started for Lambo, and we don't see the Nidus in play, right? So like this is, if Lambo gives enough room, like which souL was doing none of, right, to souL to move out, to do harassment, to do things like nuke him, right? To do things like pick off our army pieces like Ultralisks with snipes. That's what souL wants.
Absolutely.
souL can play a very cost-efficient game if there is no heavy commitment and going head-on first from Lambo, who is lacking a little bit on the gas department, but already has a 4,500 resource lead in or resource bank in the mineral form. So this is the opposite of what we saw last game when we saw Lambo kind of overcommit to a good degree with the Ultralisks and the Banelings, right? He lost it, well, now I'm dead. I don't have a way to remake him. Right now, he can lose it, trade somewhat inefficiently, reinforce, and have a second wave that could actually close out things for him, or at least, you know, keep him safe after killing a base, after spending a lot of Banelings, Ultras, Links, whatever he needs to spend.
This army moving forward once again. Lambo coming in now with those Corruptors. Widow Mines with the Drilling Claws. Very scary.
Oh, and this is something that souL could have done better against souL. Now doing it against Lambo. A lot of Widow Mines scattered. This is going to be troublesome for the Links and the Banelings in particular.
Gonna have to be so cautious with how he looks for these engages. 2 nukes at a time, 4 nukes at a time getting built here for the side of souL. So we're going to be able to use those to help clear out some of the static defense later on, as well as just a nice harassment tool. Moving forward, tanks going to be enough to repel that for now.
Good transfuses, and the first nuke will come onto these 2 spores. We'll see if the drones at the gas also have to die, but no, perfect. The spore was just in range and 2 circlings right on time.
Very, very nice. And yeah, the creep spread looking pretty good for Lambo here. Just about 75% of this map covered, as 2 Nidus networks are available from the side of Lambo.
This Ghost, though, he's right next. He's right next to the whole thing. He had time, but it's very difficult to judge sometimes, right? Like if you miscalculate, then you die.
Yeah, no, definitely better to just have that base eat the nuke than risk nuking your entire army, as his bio trying to trade out. The medevac doing its best to escape as another nuke.
This nuke is well placed, I want to say. It went down, huh?
I believe so.
Right.
Vehicle Plating 2 finished up. 3-3 coming up for this bio as well. This Corruptor count very nice and helping to deal with these Liberators. Currently looking at 10 on the map right now. 7 more getting added on. So we're going to have very, very nice air control. Of course, access to.
Look at the snipes. This is what I'm talking about. If you're not going to be, you know, very decisive in how you trade, you're gonna get your Ultra sniped. You know, that's not a thing that you want to have happen. You don't want to kind of commit and then go on the retreat. You want to be a little bit more decisive, if you will, because otherwise you're just gonna get taxed by these very efficient energy units. This Ultra is probably about to get sniped as well.
Ooh, the Banelings trying to get it.
Yeah, there's a PF here, so you don't want to chase too far into that. The Ultralist, I mean, this is not the best trade for. Actually, that's pretty good. Was that the Corruptors that killed it?
I believe so.
Very impressive. So, yeah, okay. So he was just gaining space, gets the base. That's what he came for, and that's the kind of trade that he needs. He has a 7K bank, so that is the advantage that he wants to leverage. And if he splits the map, which is what Lambo's looking for, and on this regard, he's doing similar, if not better than souL. He has a lot of workers, right?
Yeah.
So if he can mine that his half of the map faster and then move on to the extra bases, then we're looking at a game where you can still trade very cost and efficiently without necessarily threatening your opponent as much as I've been talking about, because you will have for sure secured those extra 1 or 2 bases. With the extra 1 or 2 bases, you know, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of income available as these corruptors finally clear out the last of these.
I love that.
Those the ultras.
Yeah, I love that the Baneling was going to explode onto something else, recognizes that there's a lot of red SCVs, and kind of repositions the one Baneling, right? Like a very important one Baneling. So
great awareness here from Lambo so far. As Caustic Spray takes down another base here. Command Center dropping. Of course, has quite a few spare, but nice pickups here for Lambo as he looks to finally secure this base as well, right in the face of his opponent.
Yeah, and trading very efficiently over the last minute, as souL really hasn't consolidated his army on any... But look, this is a tiny army by souL, and he keeps putting forward a very small army. Lambo tries to recognize it and goes for it, but this is a little bit of a choke where no Banelings are present, so this is a little bit sketch. A lot of Corruptors might go down here. Yeah. Now the Banelings arrive, though. Will that be enough to kill the PF? I'm not sure. I don't think so. And the SCVs are also going to be repairing. Oh, more Banelings arriving, but everything's kind of arriving not at the same time. Barely gets the PF.
Wow.
That is gigantic, because the investment of the army of Lambo was all to kill that planetary fortress.
Wow. Very, very nice pickup here for
No.
Lambo. Great nuke. 18 workers go down.
Wonderful observing here, as catching the action all over the place. There's another nuke gonna be queued.
Coming down on the top side.
Very important. That one's almost like a waste, I think. If there's no drones, there's no potential. Lambo doesn't really have to pay attention to it. At the worst, he loses 1 spore and some HP on the hatchery, but the nuke in itself is more expensive than those.
Absolutely. And now this bio continuing to trade out against these little bit of Zerglings down here on the bottom side. Tried to take down that hatchery, wasn't quite able to get the last few hits that it needed. And really the name of the game here for Lambo is just continuing to buy himself time, right? Still has such a huge bank, has that Greater Spire finishing up here very soon as well. And this Ghost will get taken out as well.
Also don't like it, right? Like it's a Ghost. He needs 2 consecutive nukes to take those down. Ooh. So it's just kind of a waste of 200 resources plus the Ghost, which is another bunch of resources, just for the potential of hurting 2 Niduses. Now, we saw a similar situation earlier where souL had 2 Niduses, and he was nuking the 2 Niduses whilst nuking also a hatchery and potentially drones, which means Lambo at the very least has to spend attention in it, right? But those 2 Niduses, no, you could just ignore them, and if you get the Ghost as he did, then that's just a win. So
yeah, these Ultras got cleaned up as well. souL starting to stabilize, you know, in terms of being pushed back, trying to reestablish control of this bottom right side. Was able to push back that hatchery. Indeed. So far, and now looking to secure this bottom right position fully, get a base planted there, get that planetary morphed in.
Snipes there, surprisingly. Fantastic snipes have been going on, but not always.
Yeah.
Very good upgrades, by the way, by Lambo on air. This is very unusual.
Very, very nice. It's now pushing forward. The Corruptors can need some great first volleys off there. The Ultra a little bit behind the action. These Banelings rolling forward.
Love it. This is what he needs to continue to do over and over again. These Corruptors could pee and then force... Oh, my God.
Huge nuke there. Takes down the middle line. Caustic Spray takes down this base.
Yep.
As the bio of souL is coming in. The reinforcements... Really the main thing left to defend here is up on the top side. A few Marines get cleaned up. The Corruptors are going to get forced back now.
Yeah, Lambo is broke, but souL has taken a lot of economic damage himself, so actually Lambo continues to have an economic lead in spite of having lost something like 40 workers in the last few minutes. So he still is very well spread throughout the map, but we see his bases are not all mining, right? At the same time, souL has been depleted of bases, of terrain, which is much worse. So Lambo will continue to have this aggressive potential, and he has been capitalizing. He has been working one side of the map consistently, and he has been meeting a few nukes. So let's see. He realizes about this one.
Yeah, almost finishing off the hatchery with that one.
That one.
Second one not gonna connect here, and Yeah, that 3-3 for the Flyers finishing up here very shortly for Lambo. Going to have so much of an upgrade advantage there in the sky. These Corruptors so durable as they push forward, taking down a lot of the Medevacs, a lot of the Liberators as well, falling. The Bio is doing what it can here for souL, but he's down to 44 army supply, and Lambo is continuing to march across.
Yeah, we finally have a consolidated army by souL where he puts a lot of his army in the same place, Liberators pre-sieged, makes some, I was going to say spore crawlers, some turrets. So he is set up as best as he can. The problem is at this point he's no longer maxed. He is trailing, you know, 60, 70 supplies. So very well executed, very well done by Lambo. And that'll be game 2.
Yeah, forcing that game 3, forcing this decider map here in the elimination match. Very well done by him.
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, the snipes very good on those ultras, but not coming through onto a lot of those corruptors. Corruptors bringing a lot of value there in dealing with those liberators and dealing with the medevacs. You know, I would have loved to see souL be souL. You know, souL was never able to had a great economy himself, but wasn't able to do the same thing, right? Wasn't able to find trades for himself, wasn't able to find harassment opportunities. You know, Lambo did such a great job of shutting down those drops, of shutting down the liberators. Just really restricted him out of that game, it felt.
Yeah, I think that souL put himself in a position where he actually did have the room to go out and do that kind of harassment. The nukes were good many times, but they came in late when Lambo has already taken so much of the map. And again, Lambo even making more drones than souL. So he could afford to trade and trade and trade. I gotta say, I would have preferred if he started trading a little bit earlier, but it ends up working out great for him because he also spreads out a little bit harder than souL was, a little bit taking those outer bases a little bit earlier. So very well done by him. And the late game, it hasn't been working too well for souL today.
Yeah, and you know, and traditionally has been one of his strengths. You know, it's been
That's the word on the street.
So you know, souL himself talking about it, complimenting him for it, and today hasn't been showing it, right? Yeah. You know, is it a necessary does he need a different approach to that late game? You know, is it a different composition that he needs, or is it just better execution, you feel?
It's very difficult to say. I feel like a lot of the time the problem is his army was not consolidated, like I was saying. Like if he has the Liberator set up, if he has like even PFs in locations where there's no mining, but rather that units are gonna coming flooding and you know it because it's the entrance to 2 of your bases. Like we saw that high ground between the 4th base and the 6th or 7th base or whatever it is, highly contested. Right, we saw units siege there the entire time, and we saw that as the starting point for Lambo's attacking onto either one of those bases. So if that consolidation happened a little bit earlier, which it ended up happening towards the end, then that's I think what souL really needs in order to trade efficiently to deny Lambo from pushing in. Now souL had the approach of the many Niduses to prevent this from happening, but Lambo wasn't actively doing that. Yeah. So I think that souL was a little bit spread too thin.
Yeah, like
and if you're going to be spread that thin, then make some walls or some PFs so that they can hold until the rest of your army comes back and can deal with the army efficiently.
Yeah, you know, I think it comes from having to look at it from a point of realism. You know, I'm investing my money here, I'm investing my army here. You know, where am I weak? Where are my resources getting invested? And like we saw the holes in that defense get picked apart by the side of Lambo. And yeah, very well done by him. As it will be Thunderbird for the next map here. And yeah, the final map of this best of 3. Of course, this is the elimination match. So loser goes home, winner moves on to face off against either souL or Marine Lord. Yeah. And that is going to be another awesome match as well.
No doubt.
A lot of awesome StarCraft coming up, guys. Of course, WCS North American Challenger coming up after this group as well.
Also a very fun group. Today is the best day so far. Honestly.
Absolutely. In terms of matches, in terms of brands on all of our arms, it's great.
Yeah, we had to match you. It's an effort that you got to put to showing your tattoo at all times.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and getting a little chopped, but yeah, no, it's I was you were talking to me about that yesterday. Like I apparently put my arms differently than everybody else.
Yeah, I mean I would too if I constantly had the Cirque tattoo. So I'm gonna. That's what I've been doing all day today for sure.
Of course, at Esports Makeup, Rosa taking care of us for that, taking care of y'all for that.
Wonderful,
making us look awesome.
Yep, Mama Rosa has been around in esports for a very long time. I met her back at Red Bull something, and she was already fantastic
wow.
at what she does. So she's been around for a long time, very passionate about StarCraft, so shout out to her as well. She doesn't get as much love as she deserves, but pretty much everyone in esports knows her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna see Lambo here, going for the pretty early hatchery.
Yeah,
Pretty normal.
hatchery for the Zerg, for the Lambo King. And yeah, very, no reason to mix it up here. Very likely that we'll go to that same late game state we've been seeing, especially on Thunderbird. You know, such a good macro map.
Yeah.
The mineral patches in the center, you know, have seen, you know, saw it from, I believe it was TLO. This was the map where he went for the hatchery, right? The proxy hatchery, yeah. You know, opened up the attack path in the center with the drones, you know, so definitely can see some weird, you know, earlier attacks on this map.
Certainly. I mean, a lot of people, if you're scouting and if you think that you will take advantage of that more so than your opponent, which is already in itself not a given, but more likely because you know that the mineral is taken. So if you want those things, then you can take one of those minerals as you scout and kind of open up the path a little bit.
Right.
So we saw that actually in the North American group, a couple of players doing that, which was a very pleasant surprise, just being a little bit extra efficient.
Yeah, it's always very nice seeing not only these you know, kind of new things in maps, but then players actually taking advantage of them and then making a you know, a notable impact on these games. As the Reaper will be making its way across, the third hatchery will be down before it gets there. So once again, very, very nice for Lambo. Oh, actually a little short on money.
Yeah, because he actually went for the faster speed this time. If you look at the speed timing, I don't believe that he took drones off of gas this time, and instead he will hide the drone. But, oh, very, very nice. No! No! Oh! Oh, what a guy.
Oh my goodness,
okay.
Right on the edge. All right.
Beautiful job. Okay, okay. Very nice job by Lambo. He hides the drone because he has the faster speed this time around, right? So he will hide the drone, and then the Reaper, he's waiting for the Reaper to think, okay, your drone is not there. Therefore, if I stand between your natural and your third, a drone will come, and that's when I'll get it, right? So he's scouting now because he's now like, where's your third? Oh, your third's at your third. What? And it's like, how did you do that? Well, he did that by hiding the drone.
Yeah, the moment he knew, now going to be able to get out of there safely. Returning home as the 1-1-1 continues on the backside of this. Double Hellion production going to be starting here, going to be looking to contest that creep spread, be a thorn in the side of Lambo in this early stages of the game. And Tech Lab, once again, going to be the call here. So potential Banshee play, probable Banshee pay, I think.
Somewhat surprising is that the link speed, he got it earlier, but he didn't seem to have a plan for it, or a clear plan for it, or maybe he didn't get it earlier. I really wasn't paying attention to how he mined the gas, but he must have if he didn't have the money for the third, as he usually does with his normal, dubbed the Q-Lash opener. So, oh, this Creep Tumor, very nice snipe, and survives with the Reaper as well. Very daring snipe too, repositioning to the right side, making sure that he doesn't get hit one more time, because that would have killed it.
Good pickups here for souL, as you know, it is just a nice little win to get, and forcing the cancel on those as well. Very nice. Just restricting Lambo a little bit here, forcing him to respect this, forcing him to wait until he has, you know, an extra queen coming up now to help him with this. The Overlord gets cleaned up. That third orbital is now done, building up the energy, calling down the mules, helping this economy get equal.
Yeah, doesn't really spot anything too significant here, and the queens are having to push off of creep, which is a little bit dangerous to protect those creep tumors. Lambo might feel hard pressed to spread creep faster, especially with the one creep tumor that was denied. And he has 4 queens, so it's a little bit easier to commit further onto the map, whereas with 2 queens, it is a little bit more difficult. So, rocks are also being worked on, and that speaks to Lambo's willingness to take that 4th base a little bit earlier than most players, perhaps. But you don't want these rocks up, because otherwise there is a certain breed of push that will punish you hard by having tanks on the high ground.
Yeah, can be so annoying to deal with, as seen a lot of Zergs lose to that, as the Hellions coming over here, contesting this creep again, trying to see if they can get any free kills here, just trying to bring value in any way they can, as the Viking will get another Overlord kill. Nicely done by souL so far with that.
Yep.
Starting up 1-1 on the back side of things. Triple hooks getting added on for Lambo here, and losing that Overlord did actually supply block him. It's a bit annoying.
Absolutely. But most importantly, this map was already played against, or for souL against souL. souL has not been switching it up at all. He's pretty much played the same, or more or less the same game, every game he's played in this matchup, right? It's like, you do your thing, you apply pressure onto the fourth with a strong push, then you drop a few command centers, then you make some ghosts, add liberators, and transition into the late game regardless of what your position is, right?
Right.
You're winning, doesn't matter, that's what you do. You're losing, doesn't matter, that's what you do, right? So knowing that from the Lambo perspective, I think that one thing that he should focus on is creep spread off to the right, because that is the position that souL chose to attack souL from, and that souL has been doing very, very well, which is to identify the area that has no creep spread and then try to capitalize on that. So I think we're going to see more of the right. I think souL, or more of that. I think that souL is looking to posture onto the right. I think he's going to ignore this middle ground once again, as it is very, very dangerous. But maybe not.
Yeah, but looking for a few of these queens. 2 tanks on the back side of this weren't visible, and so of course were loaded up inside those medevacs. The bio starting to stim. Hellbat's getting morphed in now as well. Target fire on those banelings going to be so crucial here.
Yep. And this is actually pretty nice. He puts the Hellbats with the tanks as a means to protect them, but the buffer of the Marines is in the front, which means banelings are very unlikely to get to those tanks. So you can have the Hellbats a little bit more clumped. I wouldn't mind the Hellbats also being a little bit more spread, just to tank more baneling and link shots.
Great target fire onto these queens.
Look at that.
Lings wrapping around the top side. The Hellbats
were ready.
Wonders
right?
for that.
That was exactly what souL was looking for. So a great bait setup from him there. And the Hellbats pay off, because that's, you know, Lambo thinks, okay, I know where your tanks are. I'm going to do a beautiful flank with my Zerglings because I'm so smart. But souL was already ready for that with the Hellbats in position and clumped. So very well done.
Good stuff so far. Bio sticking around, looking to pick off 1 queen. Won't be able to find too much more though, but mission accomplished for them. They will go ahead and be backing off, looking for their next angle of attack. More barracks getting added on. Drilling claws once again going to be coming out here from souL as Hive getting started up for Lambo.
And the tanks are gone, or where are they?
They did die,
So
yes, and he has not remade them, going for the Widow Mines instead here.
So yeah, with that, I mean, that's going to get souL kind of pushed back for the time being. Now we usually see him do this double-pronged harass. Liberators are to be expected in...
Yeah, straight up killing that. So 300 minerals down the drain, which, you know, could matter. It, you know, it's definitely not what you want.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know, definitely adds up as souL moving into this main base now with this medevac drop, like 1 Hydra.
This is one of his strengths, but yeah, the 1 Hydra is kind of in position. Unfortunately, he starts focus firing the Marine, because otherwise the staying power of this push would have been much lower, and the medevac would struggle to do something like this, right? Because then a couple of Hydras move in and pick it off if it's in the red. So souL is now gonna take his 4th base. With that 4th base, consistently, we have seen sensor towers arrive. We have seen additional bases being taken, additional command centers being produced. Very nice mine drop, and that's a new one.
Yeah, that's massive.
That's the power of mixing it up as well, right? Like you've seen something so many times, and then you throw in a curveball. Well, your curveball is more likely to do a little bit more, because players are ultimately, whether they consciously are aware or not, analyzing patterns. And so that was unexpected for me. I'm sure and unexpected for Lambo too.
Yeah, exactly, and especially with how, like as you said, you know, souL been playing the same style for so long today, mixing it up with just kind of a half step different, right? You know, still very
tiny difference.
Very tiny difference, but getting himself some great gains there. 15 workers get taken down. Adrenal glands in that 2-2 coming up for this ground force of Lambo, as the supply difference is about 20 in favor of souL, but Lambo been doing a good job of trading efficiently, so not the biggest deal in the world here. Spire on the way behind this as well. Pathogen glands coming up. Lambo really powering up here, getting ready.
Nice snipe.
Nice job.
Yeah, nice snipe is going to make it so that these Marines are actually going to keep grounded until they all die. And Lambo's creep spread not nearly as good as souL's in this particular map. This is a huge map, so so you would really benefit from a few more creep tumors, I think, on all sides. But souL has been doing a fantastic job denying it, pushing it back. And this time around, he's actually switching up his army composition from the tanks that we saw him so heavily rely on to Widow Mines. So maybe he has taken note of his weaknesses to some degree. I think that Widow Mines have been working out great for him, and I love this adaptation by souL. Again, tiny bits of adaptation. He's still doing the same thing at the core, right? Like we see the Fusion Core coming in, we see the Ghost Academy coming in, an additional 2 starports actually.
Ooh.
And that might be for Liberators, as we have gotten accustomed to from him.
Yeah, and you know, have been bringing him value.
Again.
Oh man, Widow Mines once again getting good shots off. 10 more workers getting taken down, and you know, it does only take him down to even. Yeah.
The thing is that that base wasn't actually fully saturated anymore, so I would have loved for souL to take note, because he had to have been looking to drop those. Yeah, this could be dangerous.
Yeah, triple medevac drop up in the main base now, unloaded. That spawning pool gonna get taken out. No adrenal glands for you. Oh no, never mind, it's already done. So.
Yeah,
but,
that's
no
a yikes on the Spire though. The greater Spire, perhaps the bigger deal here, as it gets taken down.
So nice.
And 3 Liberators indeed in production. Now that Widow Mine, like I was saying, I would have much rather seen him drop 2 mines and then go with 2 mines elsewhere, right? Because you were never going to get full value out of 4 mines on a not fully saturated base.
Yeah, and that little bit of efficiency is going to matter so much as the massive economy of Lambo is set up, and as he starts to get closer to being able to start those trades that you've been touching on. You know, being able to abuse this massive 95 worker supply that he has at the moment. Spire getting rebuilt. So far away.
Yeah, and that is one strength of the approach that Lambo has right now, and one thing that he has going for him is those 95 drones, very similar to what we saw in the game that he won just now. So if he's able to defend actively and properly, we might see a similar situation again, but he's got to be very proactive in denying these bases. It is a very large map, so I like it a little bit less for the Hydraling Bane, especially if you don't have creep just about everywhere, right? Good job from either player also in keeping vision and contesting those watchtowers on the side of the map. That is going to grant Lambo vision of these 3 medevacs coming into his or to threaten his new base. souL is aware that he gets spotted, and so he unloads right away.
Yeah, nice job moving in at the same time with this other force, and will actually be able to kill that hatchery as well. Very nice for souL here as Lambo tries to trade out a few of these banelings for it. Not what you want to be doing. And souL with the 3 medevacs, they are very low, which is giving me a bit of nervousness here. You know, if they do get misrallied into a Hydra or 2, could see a few of them get popped, but. See if that ends up mattering here. Looks coming up for these ghosts. More Ghost Academies getting added on. Going to mean more nukes, and that Greater Spire finally.
Here comes souL from the top as well. Lambo not fully in position for this, and a lot of Liberators already pre-sieged. And he's slowly chopping away at Lambo, also keeping the creep back. But most importantly, base-wise, Lambo is just contained to the 4 compared to the 6 bases of souL, so in a very precarious position in spite of having the 94 workers. He's not going to be able to mine as efficiently. So if we look at the income right now, actually, it's souL with considerably less workers. In fact, mathematics, is that 18 less workers?
Sure.
Yeah, with 18 less workers, he's going to have a considerably higher income, not just by virtue of mules, but the worker spread over multiple bases.
Empty medevac sitting there as Lambo looks to open up these this path over to the left, help him take an extra base here. There is a drop already ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, this is great by souL. He knows what positions he needs to defend, he needs to contest, and Lambo is really struggling to find them. Now, he is maxed, so, you know, if we're looking at bigger engagements, at bigger pushes on either side, then this game can still go either way. Lambo also has a gigantic bank, so he has the ability to remax should he kind of trade not efficiently, but not efficiently enough. Now, this is by something that he's accrued, an advantage that he's accrued throughout the entire game in terms of economy, but the longer this game goes, the more it favors souL in the current panorama.
This army still posturing, just looking for any free picks they can. Doesn't want to be caught off guard, as the Ling's going to be able to very nicely kill that SUV, building the base. souL now moving in at the same time, dropping the nuke at that 3rd base location. So looking to draw that screen away. More army at the top at that 5th base position coming in as well. Such a great job by souL, and actually the workers getting transferred over. 13 drones go down As the main army responds to this drop up in the top right side, center of the map, still staying alive, severely overstimmed, but able to kill quite a few creep tumors.
Yeah, and that is huge. If we look
So
if
nice.
we just look at the mini map, all those big squares, my friends, those are command centers, and this is gonna start getting nasty because what happens is once those all turn into orbital commands and the game gets late enough, souL is going to be able to basically just max on units, sacrifice all of his SCVs, and then Lambo will have no advantage to speak of, and it will be pretty much impossible to trade efficiently with, you know, with half the army supply essentially if you want to have any drones.
Makes it such a tough situation as these melees come crashing in. Great EMP on the Vipers. Takes down all of their energy. One parasitic bomb able to go off. The Hydras on the left-hand side going to be doing quite a bit to help with this as well as the Liberators start to get shredded. The bio loaded up in those medevacs and going to be on the run here. Corruptors.
Yeah, those Corruptors.
Get involved here.
Oh, are we going to see a recall? No recall.
No, no recall. No mothership hiding in the main base or anything. It is just Terran manpower and wow, able to stay alive there.
Yeah, would have loved to see souL.
Oh, the Vipers!
Oh, this is huge. Nice snipe as well. Killed those
nice.
very expensive units.
So expensive here as the bio staying alive here. Yeah, they're not contributing at the highest level here, and that Queen goes down as well. Lambo.
Where's this ghost? Where's this ghost at?
Too much damage.
Lambo needs to find this ghost. I don't see the ghost.
I don't see.
I ain't afraid of no ghost.
Oof. Down it goes.
Down it ghosts. Okay. So, I mean, creep spread from Lambo, re-establishing at the north or to the north. So I like that he has kept aware of what he needs to do here. That one spore is not well positioned or repositioned, so it will die.
Yep, Ghost finally gets cleaned up, and now before the nuke connects, only a couple workers going down to it.
Needs to kill that Ghost
coming
or
in on the bottom side as well. Number of mining bases, something to keep in mind here as this game starts to go down. Lambo starting to run a little low in that regard. That bottom base, very, very important. That top right base, very important as well to the survivability of this game for Lambo.
Yeah, he's actually done a good job of re-establishing those bases. It was a lot harder a little bit ago when he was on 4 bases versus 6. Now at least he's mining efficiently and using most of his drones, but he's down to 74 now, unfortunately, right? Had he the 90-something drones as he had before, this would be a little bit closer to ideal. souL, however, now looking to take that very important base with the gas. With rich Vespin geysers, I should say.
Very important indeed, as these expensive units are, of course, going to have to get replaced, as you can't win a war without spilling a little blood.
Yeah, and you might wonder how is souL so low on minerals? Well, he's still setting up for his ultimate game, right? Which is eventually, and I would like to start seeing that, sacrificing some more SCVs in favor of getting an army that trades more cost efficiently.
Yeah, because I mean he has, how many is it now? 8 orbital commands? I mean that is so many mules available. Scans coming through. This bio starting to gain some ground. Going to be able to take down this hatchery up the top right side. As I said, one of the few mining bases, and all 22 drones get shredded as well. Granted, it does kind of work out for Lambo in the sense that he will be able to make a bigger army in the short term if this bio overextends and continues pushing into him. But not what you want here.
Indeed, and now Lambo is on a very slow army composition with the Broodlords on one of the larger maps in the map pool. So this is going to be difficult for him to find a position where he is attacking without getting, you know, destroyed back at home. Now, I think that this is a little bit of a mistake by souL not clearing that creep spread because he gained that position up at the north. Yeah. And that is something that Lambo put a lot of effort into and now he's having to relegate himself and his army and his position to the south, which now souL scans. So I wouldn't be surprised, or I would love to see souL move to that south as Lambo pushes here, because this is souL. I don't think souL wants to engage this head on.
Yeah, definitely does not want to take this in a head-on engagement. Fungal covering a lot of that bio as the parasitic bomb going to be enough to force this back. This base will fall. souL going to have to concede.
Yeah, this is huge for Lambo if souL continues to try to engage this. What should be happening right now, in my opinion, is souL moving his entire army, killing the bases at the bottom, maintaining his greater lead in terms of economy, and you know, preparing. Yeah, but I'm not sure what Marauders are gonna do here, honestly.
Yeah, like, are they...
I'm just having trouble wrapping myself around the Marauders right now.
I guess concussor shells maybe to try and help him kite against the Banelings?
I mean, you could maybe look for snipes on the Infestors with Marauders just because they're a little bit more durable than the Marines, perhaps, if that's his plan. Oh, a lot of this drone's not mining, actually going to do him a little bit of a favor, and this is exactly what souL needs to be doing. Say, okay, your army is too strong to fight head-on, but my army has so much damage output that I can actually kill a lot of your stuff, and you're kind of playing the, you know, Zerg sometimes plays that sort of base trady style, and you kind of want to be the Zerg if the Zerg army is so slow and it can't really pull back, right, to defend.
Right.
But Lambo actually manages to push back, as this is a very Zerg thing to do as well, right? It's like you're attacking, you're basically A-moving with the Broodlords because there's not much to do, not much micro to do with those. The Infestor, sure, the every other unit, sure.
There.
But the Terran player has to be very, very careful when attacking on two fronts for Banelings, especially on creep. So Lambo taking advantage of that will end up also pushing back this base.
Every single medevac just died, Cats. Every single medevac in this game for that bio. That is so reliant on the stim. Its health bar is going to be a limited quantity here as the Viking count is climbing. Not the best. You know, not going to be performing the best here against those Corruptors as they get on top of them. 98 to 130, that army supply. The worker supply as well, coming close to parity here.
Yeah, indeed. Now there's enough Vikings that you can continue, or that you can consider engaging this army. But at this point, Lambo is so far ahead, and this is the kind of fight that this army wants to take. The biggest disadvantage of Broodlords is their mobility. So in heads-on engagements, when you're in a position where you're actually sieging your opponents, basically pretty close to production now, right? Like he's getting to that point where you cannot longer avoid him. Like your buffer in terms of bases and in terms of economy, it has been somewhat erased. And I love that Lambo is going for the jugular here because this forces an engagement from souL.
Yeah.
Right. This is not something that you can kind of just ignore and counterattack against once it gets to this point.
Yeah.
So even though souL's still mining, even better than Lambo, considerably so. If we look at the mineral, at the income right now, souL is mining very, very well, but Lambo is recognizing his win condition is not in mining right now. It's in ending the game, and please turn around and try to end the game.
Yes, he really needs to not give souL the room here. If he gives souL the room, it gives him chances to bring himself back here. He was almost on top of the production there. I really don't know. Like, I really don't like that. I wish he would have just kept marching forward there, because now souL's resecuring that ramp. This is a great caustic bile.
Yeah, but look at souL climbing back in supply. Now this is a good engage for Lambo, good fungos, but the Infestors are a lot of them are gonna go down in this liberation.
Huge
no,
EMPs as well.
no!
The Liberator's doing so much, shutting through the Infestors here, and now the Broodlord's getting sniped.
Game.
The bio on the ramp doing all it can, but with no Broodlord, with no medevacs, healing as much as they can, and now gonna get underneath these Broodlords. So money lost here for Lambo. Oh my goodness!
Done this. And this fight would have gone so much better, I think, well, obviously without the EMP, but also in the chokes and while sieging the production, I feel like that would have been the better fight to take.
Yeah.
He pushed him so far back.
Oh,
Had him against the corner, I feel like. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, you know, maybe Lambo knows something that I don't. Again, a very intelligent player, so, right? But if you are not mining it, maybe he wasn't aware of the economy of souL or something.
Yeah.
You know, you just can't give him that much time, because if they're mining much more and they have the production to spare because you haven't touched their production all game, then of course they're gonna come back with more units, right? You gotta keep that pressure on while you have the momentum going on your end.
So tough now for Lambo as the bio moves in, the siege position getting set up here. The Vikings trading out against the last of these Corruptors, 52 to 90, that army supply, as souL is marching forward, looking to secure his spot in that decider match here for Group D.
Pretty much all coming down to that one EMP or two EMPs. I think the Infestors completely depleted of their fungo and or abilities otherwise, and they kind of just stood in the liberation zones as well, right? So at that point, maybe you pull back. Hey, yeah, I mean, Lambo's trailing. Yeah, he's trailing a lot behind.
Yeah, no, like it's like these are decent trades against this bio, but the army supply is still in favor of souL here. He's gonna have more mules available. You know, his economy is just going to constantly be better than Lambo's right now, as they are both on similarly limited income. But
Yeah.
souL having access to those mules is such a great boon.
I mean, Lambo did use that position to reestablish his economy, and that's why I think he maybe didn't gauge. We're all knowing, of course, here. So he didn't gauge the economy of souL and how good it still was. But we saw the income graph, right? It was still absurd compared to nothing. So Lambo, I think, thought, okay, I've gained so much position. I have a very strong army. I've pushed him back into his base. With this, I'm going to take map control. I'm going to reestablish my economy, and I'm going to play the longer game. But he gets jumped by a bigger army. souL breaks free. His bases are allowed to continue to mine, and the production gets sieged. So a very good, or the production doesn't get sieged. So a very good game on both ends.
Absolutely, and great capitalizing on that mistake by souL, recognizing that that army was overstaying, that he did finally have that room to breathe, calling down the mules at his safest base as well. Very great job not putting those in harm's way unnecessarily. And yeah, Lambo just wasn't able to break it there. I would have loved to see him bring the siege all the way up into that base.
What I'll bring right now is the schedule, actually, if that's okay. Now.
Oh, might be a little fast for him.
There we go. So unfortunately, Lambo will end up finishing 4th in his group. I'm sure not playing to his usual standard, as he kind of fall behind a lot of the time to things that he usually, I think, wouldn't, right? Like against Marine Lord, unfortunately, that very strong Hellion ran by, and this is what's going on. So souL now versus Marine Lord, that's going to be a barn burner.
Indeed, the next map up, guys, yet another TvZ. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more European StarCraft after a break.